I was wondering, have you heard the other side of the story? All right, let me rephrase that. Have you read the other side of the story? Oh, yes, ma'am. What's the matter? The child is here. I am sorry for the interruption. Welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina, K-R-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books, talk about books, no special effects, no theme music, no special editing. What you see is what you get here. And we just finished Ursula, and I've got to get to Patterson, and I've got to get to Coulter, and I've got to get to a whole pile of books over there. But this came in, and where's my glasses? This came in, and I decided to read this one because it came in. And at first I wasn't going to do it. I know the story. I was there. All right, I wasn't there. I lived through it. I was a fan watching the TV show, watching the stuff play out in the newspapers, in magazines. I didn't know the inner story. I've been to the concerts. So, I mean, I was a fan and I lived through most of it. But, and I knew most of it because she's talked about most of it. But there were some intricate details in here that I did not know. There's a lot of personal stuff in here that we did not know. There's a lot of details, personal details, intimate details that only the inner circle would know. So it turned out to be a really good book. And it ends in 1977. It ends before one of the big events that will change life forever for Cher. And so the next book is going to start off with I can see it now. A huge emotional event is going to occur. Didn't see it coming, but there will be a huge emotional event. So I thought we'd have a little fun with this. Cher the Memoir Part One. I can't wait for Part Two. She starts out the book with talking about her mom, and if you stay tuned to the end, we'll talk about the other side. Sorry, sinus jerk. So her mother starts out life as Jackie Jean, and her mother changes her name a couple times, and she finally ends up as Georgia Holt at the end. But she changes her name several times early on in the book. And all the different men her mother married, and she starts out with all that, and her father, and her relationship with her father, and how she got her name. And this was just, while my mother was recovering in the hospital, a nurse came into her room and asked, "And what are you going to name your baby?" My mother had no idea. But the woman insisted, so she replied, "Well, Lana Turner is my favorite actress, and her little girl's called Cheryl. My mother's name is Linda, so how about Cheryl Lynn?" I believe Cheryl Lynn was my name until the day years later when I decided to legally change my name to simply Cher. When I applied for my birth certificate, I was shocked to find that I was officially registered as Cheryl, and asked my mother, "Do you even know my real name, Mom?" "Look at me," she cried. "I was only a teenager. I was in a lot of pain. Give me a break." Okay. Then she tells how she ended up in the Catholic orphanage. And if you've watched any of the interviews on TV, she talks about that. Being left at the orphanage, how that's where her father dumped her, and her mother couldn't afford to. She had to pay them $4 to raise Cher for a couple of months, and then she used this guy Dave, who I believe was a council person of some kind. I'm not sure, to get her out, and that's how she got Cher out. And then she introduces Cher to her grandmother and some friends, Edith and Mackie, that helped raise her, but Cheer really doesn't remember them. Then she has her mother's other husband, and then her mother's other husband, and then her mother changes her name from Jean to Georgia Pelham, and then Cher's sister G is born, Georgiana, and talk about school, all the different schools Cher went to. Then her mother marries husband number 4. Then Cher meets her biological father and possibly marrying him again. Uh, and her getting to know this guy Tony. And let's see if I can find it now. Well, I don't remember why I thought this was important to share, but I'm gonna share it with the brush queen over here. Let's see. Uh, oh, he's asking her to sit for a portrait that ends up running in a magazine, and she's supposed to be an American Indian. That's how that got started. That's how that got started. Oh, and also, I was at Martini sitting for Tony one day when another stranger started talking to me, only this time I didn't roll my eyes. His name was Antonio Lo Tempo, better known as Nemo Tempo, a singer and musician with a beautiful voice who was 13 years older than me. I liked him a lot, and we were just starting to get close when his demanding friend flew into town from New York and took up all his time. His friend was a 22-year-old music producer and record label owner named Philip Spector, who will end up playing a huge role in her life, sort of, kind of, in the beginning, who was making music at Gold Star Record Studios at Santa Monica Boulevard, which became one of the most successful studios in the world. Everyone from Brian Wilson to Jimi Hendrix to the Righteous Brothers to Ritchie Valens recorded in the place where Spector learned his craft. Once he became successful, he continued to use the same studio, and from the day he was flown in by a record company, Nina was expected to be on call. So that's how she very first met Philip Spector. Then she spent time with a famous actor. I just thought I'd throw this in because it's cute. She spent the night with this guy, and I don't think they did anything. Where is it? Um, so then she had seen this guy and she had stayed out a while. So this guy calls, let's go to dinner. No, I told him, as my mother strained to eavesdrop. Then how about swimming? Laughing at his random suggestion, I didn't want him to know how young I was or that I was grounded. So I told him, my mother's pissed with me for getting home so late. I'm not going anyplace. We had a fight. I can't go out. Let me talk to your mom. I wish I had a photograph of the look on her face when she realized who she was speaking to. Well, why didn't you just tell me you were hanging out with Warren Beatty? So she was allowed to go out. Then we have the moment that we have heard about millions and millions of times on interviews, 70s, 80s, 90s. I was sitting with Red and my friend Melissa when there was a sudden buzz and I hear someone cry, "Hey, Sonny." And then a bunch of people yelled, "Hey, son, come to our table. Come sit with us." Everyone was calling out to the sky. Based on all the commotion, I was expecting a tall, handsome man to walk up behind me, and I turned to look. An intriguing stranger with a Caesar-style haircut walked toward us. He was wearing a black mohair suit, a mustard shirt with an oversized starched white collar and tie that matched the shirt. To this day, I can see our Hollywood meet cute in my mind, grinning from ear to ear as people jumped up to say hello and shake his hand. Salvador Philip Bono was one of the most interesting men I'd ever met. He sat at our table. I noticed his beautiful hands with their long tapered fingers and a gold chain link ID bracelet with a watch face where the name could have normally have been. Sonny definitely caught my attention. I was always interested in fascinating people because those were the kind of people I grew up with. He was the 60 versions of my mom's friends, and she falls in love instantly. So, over the next 10 days, Sonny and I hung out and became friends. He liked that I was quirky and non judgmental. I liked that he was funny and different. He was a grown up without being too grown up, and I was 16-year-old lying about my age. He took me to the park, or we talk in his apartment until his friends came over. Um, Looking for a sympathetic ear, I walked over to Sonny's and sat on his couch to tell him I had no choice but to move home. Tears sprang to my eyes at the mere thought of it. I didn't mean to cry, but I think it made Sonny take pity on me. Well, Cher, if you cook and clean the place, you can always move in with me for a while. In my mind, I was thinking, yeah, okay, this old line, but I must have had a look on my face because he shook his head and laughed. Don't worry, I got twin beds, he said with a grin. And honestly, I don't find you particularly attractive. That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. And she has told that story over and over again over the years. Then, um, her spending time with Philip Spector and getting to know Sonny and meeting Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and let's see. Baby Don't Go was released on Frank Sinatra's Reprise label in September 1964, and Sonny and Cher was born. Even though the song was originally meant just to be just for me, Sonny put his name first. It sounded better. Once we had the demo, Sonny persuaded his friend, the DJ Sam Riddle, to play it on his popular radio show, where success or failure depended on audience reaction. In those days, listeners picked which songs were played, so we enlisted everyone we knew to call in and ask for hours. There were 2 telephones in the house we were sharing with our managers, and Marcy and I manned these while Sonny, Brian, and Charlie called in from elsewhere. Mom and G called in for home, and other friends were recruited too. We didn't stop dialing until our single became the most requested song on the Southern California airwaves. We followed that up with our first album. It was also called Baby Don't Go and featured mostly covers and a few of Sonny's songs. Sales were modest but encouraging, convincing that this was the break we'd been waiting for. Sonny made a momentous decision. We can't be singing background forever. I think we have a shot at this. It's time to leave Phil and try to make it on our own. Then, a story we've heard often in these upcoming years. One night early in 1965, he woke me up to play another new number he'd written. He'd had a habit of scrawling lyrics on old shirt cardboard, filling in with both the white and brown sides before handing it to me. He had the worst handwriting in the world, so as I squinted at it through sleepy eyes, I tried to make sense of what he'd written. Then I listened to him sing it, and I can tell you Sonny's voice wasn't amazing in the daytime. So imagine having to listen to it at 2 a.m. I got you, babe, he sang, a little off key. On first hearing it, I wasn't impressed. I don't like it, I declared, yawning. I don't think it's a hit. I'd already asked him to add some modulation when he wrote me a song, which made it more exciting and was something Philip did in some of his tracks. I don't care what it is, I just want modulation. 2 hours later, he woke me again. Cher, I think I've got it. Come on, listen. And he played it for her, and she liked it better. Within weeks, we recorded I Got You Babe at Gold Star Ahmet stopped by to listen. We knew my mom, Ahmet, from years before and had been telling him every time she saw him, I have a daughter who sings. Each time Ahmet would dismiss her saying, yes, Georgia, yes, Georgia. And we released Babe as a single, and Sonny's friend Sam Riddle promoted it heavily. In the summer of '65, our lives were about to change forever. The Beach Boys invited us on tour, and we did gigs with them in Birmingham, San Diego, the Hollywood Bowl, San Jose, and the Cow Place in Dale City, where we reconnected with the Ronettes. Just a second here. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. I just thought I'd share. So, then she meets the Ed Sullivan Show. She does the Ed Sullivan Show. She meets Sammy Davis. She does some modeling for Vogue. They make that movie. I remember seeing that movie. It was a flop. Um, Meeting Bob Mackie, who would forever change her clothing life. The movie Chastity. They made Good Times first, and they made Chastity. I remember seeing Chastity. Going bankrupt. Then The Big Promise. Um, there's quite a few pictures in here. I love the pictures. Chastity. Let's see. There's no special editing here. Oh, it's before the pictures. It's before the pictures. Um, he tells her that they owe taxes. They haven't paid any taxes. They owe I think it was 250,000. I don't quote me on that. And Sonny'd been borrowing money from his chauffeur, and the house wasn't fully paid for either, so they had to get rid of everything. So that's how things are, Cher, Sonny told me finally, his voice flat. There's nothing else to do but start again. And then he said, look at me, Cher. Just give me 2 years. I promise we'll be bigger than ever. Okay, son. 2 years. And they meet another man who will change their lives forever. Who has a big, 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 they do Merv Griffin. Where is it? Um, Unbeknownst to us, Fred Silverman had spotted some potential in her act and was looking for a more contemporary variety show to attract younger viewers weary of long-standing hosts such as Merv Griffin, Dean Martin, and Dinah Shore. Wanting feedback, Frank sent two of his best producers and writers, who recently worked together on The Andy Williams Show, to watch us and help us decide if we were good enough to have our own gig. And they decided to give them a chance. Um, by the time they landed back in LA, they'd already written the formula of a new show for us based on what Sonny and I had developed on our own. Within days, Fred Silverman offered us a chance to record a summer pilot, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. We got 6 episodes because CBS was releasing a miniseries about the 6 wives of Henry VIII, and we were the lead in. So then an animation of us created by graphic artist John Wilson rolled, and an announcer called out from Television City in Hollywood, "Ladies and gentlemen, Sonny and Cher." If you go on YouTube, it's on YouTube. You can watch the numbers. You can watch all of the shows on, well, most of the shows. I've seen about 3 or 4 of them. They're showing up on YouTube. And I stood there taking it all in. This is what I'm supposed to do. Ever since I sat open mouthed in Grumman's Chinese theater at 5 years old, I wanted to be up on a screen in my own show. I had the same feeling watching Elvis. We opened singing alternate lines of "The Beat Goes On" until it was my cue to step forward and pretend to get carried away by myself, just as I done in the nightclub act. Sonny faking indignation, and tried to cut in. I kept cutting across him and blocking him from view until he stopped the music together, hands on his hips as I carried on a cappella. "What am I, chopped liver?" he asked. "The song was written for the both of us, sweetheart." I nodded, then replied, "Was." The audience burst into laughter. I sang. I carried on singing. I eventually stopped and let him have his turn, staring him down. "Are you upset because I wanted to do my spot?" "Goodness to Betsy, no," I replied. Giving up, Sonny allowed the spotlight. I swayed from hips to hips provocatively. He interrupted again, stepping in front of me, saying, "No, no, no, she's the mother of my child." He cried, "Can you stop that? Use your feet. That's what I do. Snap your fingers. Cher only moves that way on stage. After the show, nothing goes on." The 78-year-old veteran comedian in vaudeville Jimmy Durante was hilarious as one of our first guests. Jimmy was one of the first people in her vamp skits. I remember those vamp skits. I liked it. Cleopatra, Pocahontas, Mata Hari. After the skit, I would sit on top of a upright honky tonk piano with my legs crossed, lying along the top in a gorgeous red gown, singing the best song about being a scamp, a vamp, and a bit of a tramp, before spelling out VAMP. And it was good times. Then, um, she needs friends. She doesn't have any friends. She's totally cut off from the world. She goes food shopping for the first time in her life ever because she has a few dollars. The cashier hands her receipt, and Cher autographs it. She's never been food shopping in her life. She has no clue. Um, the invention of the Laverne character on her show. Um, and her leaving Sonny, her meeting Gregory, and Elijah, and all that other stuff is in the book so you can read. And I also recommend The First Time. My buddy over here, don't want to cover her up. Recommending The First Time. And uh something that you may or may not have seen before. Sunny side of the story. And the beat goes on. When was this written? Oh. This had to be written before the 1991. Does it have the... Was this after... I don't know if he... I don't know when he wrote this. If he wrote this before Letterman and after Letterman. Because Letterman is just... Cher will probably pick up on Letterman in her part two. That's a huge, huge... The world considers that... her fans consider that a moment. But we have... And the beat goes on. Sonny Bono. Oh, look. Let's do this once. Sonny and Cher. Sonny and Cher. Together again. I keep thinking, have you seen the Natalie Cole? She did a duet with her father's hologram. Cher does it, but she does it with old video clips. I was wondering if they could do an AI version of Sonny for a small couple songs. Beat Goes On and I Got You, Babe. But she does a really good job with the video clips too. But it's really emotional for Cher. And it is emotional to watch. But it's fun for the fans. The fans love it. It's sorry, sinus drip. Let's just do a little of Sonny's side of the story, shall we? I have to say that I was expecting it. Still, the first time that my relationship with Cher was mentioned in my campaign for mayor of Palm Springs, I stumbled. I was shaking hands outside a local senior citizen center where a long line of people were waiting to get their cholesterol checked. It was a few minutes after 7 a.m. on the second to last day of February 1988. The hot sun was covering the vast Coachella Valley like a first coat of paint. I sipped from a cup of coffee. Little technical issue. I noticed two gentle, grandmotherly looking ladies point at me and whisper. I thought I was ready for them. After declaring my candidacy, I had telephoned Clint Eastwood for advice. Unfortunately, Clint was out of town, but I spoke to the woman who managed his campaign. Her advice was simple: drink lots of coffee and talk to everyone in town. That's what I was trying to do. So, coffee in hand, I approached the two women. Hello, I'm Sonny Bono. I'm running for mayor. You used to be married to Cher, one of the ladies said. That's right, a long time ago. Well, dear, I've got to tell you that hair of hers and those clothes, when she wears them, her friend interjected. I don't know about her, the First Lady said. I just don't know. I don't know what to say, I replied. I'm running for mayor, did you know? I hope you vote for me. I gave them my best smile and moved on. It seems as if I was following Ronald Reagan and Clint Eastwood by trading celebrity for political office. The similarity was unintentional. The way I saw it, I was merely an average citizen, Joe Average, who was fed up with the old boy network that had run City Hall for years. A few silly bureaucratic battles over the remodeling of my house had pushed me to the breaking point. By running for mayor, I was simply standing up for my rights. My opponents chided me for being the ex-Mr. Cher. They called me Sonny Bonehead. They labeled me Mr. Anti-Establishment, an upstart rebel rouser, rock and roller. Ironically, I was registered Republican who had voted for Reagan in 1984. They also criticized me for having no experience in government, but even student body president. I tried to slough off anything to do with Cher, since this was not the issue, but in truth, she was partly responsible for my living in Palm Springs. My love affair with the jewel of the desert cities began during the breakup of our love affair, which ended in divorce on June 26, 1975. Since then, we had little to do with each other, crossing paths irregularly, like sagebrush blowing across the sand. Our daughter Chastity, a film student, served a loving and trustworthy go-between. She kept us up to date on each other's personal, social, and business calendar. Cher was dating bartender-turned-actor Rob Camletti, and my wife Mary was pregnant. Cher was starring in the movie Moonstruck while I was running for mayor. That was as far as it went. No phone calls, no Christmas cards, no requests for Sonny the Mayor t-shirts. Then, in the midst of the campaign, I received a surprising phone call, but not from Cher. On the line was a producer from Late Night with David Letterman. Oh, good God, they're going to start with that. Oh, good God. I'm telling you, that's the moment. The absolute moment. I loved it. Chaz had told me that Cher was trying to revive her recording career and a new album about to come out. If I guessed it on Letterman with Cher, it would draw a tremendous amount of attention to the show and to her. For a brief moment, we could be Sonny and Cher again. I grasped the ploy immediately and thought it was a brilliant move. I figured that Cher was behind it. If you have hesitation, Mr. Bono, think about the exposure we'll bring to your campaign. Sure, I'd love to do the show. Just give me the details. The show was several weeks away. The week after accepting the invitation, I received another out of the blue phone call. This time, the voice on the other end was familiar. It was Cher. Son, I'm really concerned about this Letterman show. I don't know if I can handle it. I've been freaking out about it for the past week. Whoa, wait a minute, Cher. What do you mean freaking out? You've always had stage fright and you've always gotten through it. Relax. No, son, you don't understand. Then Cher explained that the last time she went on Letterman, she and Dave got into a sarcastic tiff that ended with her calling him a bad name. And it's a famous video on YouTube. It's out there. Let's go through it. I want to see what happens. A car provided by the show dropped Mary, Chaz, and me off in front of the NBC building at Rockefeller Plaza where Late Night is taped. Up until that point, I was pretty calm. We'd been talking about the show in the car as if it were an everyday sort of thing, which wasn't true. But it didn't hit me until I strolled past the revolving door and into the lobby. Yes, ma'am. There was Cher, the skinny homeless waif she'd been when we first met, scared but strong, certain that she wanted stardom. I pictured her hanging out in the studio with me and Phil Spector. I remembered having to calm her nerves during our first tentative attempts at recording, then the release of I Got You Babe brought the stardom and the craziness that seemed to stay with us throughout our relationship, no matter where we were on top of the world or down in the dumps. Dad, Earth to Dad, huh? Mary and Chastity are two of the strongest Sonny and Cher fans I've ever encountered in the elevator. The three of us suddenly fell silent and tense, then started to laugh. This might be really big, I said. And it was. It was huge. Huge. Let's go skip a part. Let's go. After watching Cher rehearse with Paul Schaefer, a longtime friend of mine, and his band, it was time to wait. The old schmooze and snooze. Mary and I hung out in my dressing room. Then, as time grew close, we moved onto the green room. I don't know who was more excited, Mary or I. If I Got You Babe comes on the radio, she'll crank up the volume. I looked at her glowing face and felt so grateful that we shared a genuine and mutual love. Although I had met Letterman in the hall before the show, it wasn't until he introduced me to the audience as the songwriter of 10 gold records, an actor, a restaurateur, and a political candidate that we had any real conversation. And he goes through the conversation. If you'd like me to do it in full, leave notes in the comments. And he makes them get up. Cher does her song. And they do a little interview, and they don't force her, but they kind of suggest that her and Sonny sing together. And it was awkward, and you could tell Cher was a bunch of nerves. Phil Schaefer was already leading the world's most dangerous band through the opening of the song most identified with Sonny and Cher, I Got You Babe. A pair of microphones were handed to Cher and me. Suddenly we were standing beside each other, feeling out the music, shifting from one foot to another, drifting back in time, or trying to. At least once it had been second nature for us to sing together. Now, strangely, it was still second nature. There was no denying that Cher and I were different people. Nothing about me was attractive to her, I was sure, and vice versa. But Cher and me together and you'll still get an explosion. That's just the way it is. Once we got on stage, the magic was still there. The chemistry we shared was still there, which made singing to Cher especially hard on me. I was forced to look into Cher's eyes because what I saw wasn't real. In our married days, though good and bad times, the looks we exchanged on stage were the glue that held us together. No matter what was going on in our lives, those looks carried us through anything. They told of a life we shared, of the hurdles we overcame, of how much we achieved, of how much we needed each other. Those looks said, don't worry, screw whatever's happening in our lives. I'm here, you're here, let's do this best. But on Letterman, I looked into Cher's eyes, and what I discovered wasn't I love you and you love me or I got you, babe. It was more like what the hell is going on? A Sonny and Cher reunion was an emotional event for me, but I found myself dealing with immense curiosity about the woman who'd once been my wife. I saw this person with tattoos, the leather, and the stockings, and I was dumbfounded. What the hell had happened? Of course, I loved singing with Cher again, and everyone else loved it too. I saw Chastity and Mary crying in the booth. It was impossible not to be affected. Actually, I was choked up and sad. I felt as if I was watching a timeless love story replay itself, except that the story was all screwed up, which added a slightly bittersweet taste to the sentiment. Ironically, Cher and I forgot some of the words, but we latched onto the cue cards and finished singing, I hold me tight, I got you to walk with me. Soon after the taping, Cher and Rob left the studio and disappeared in the midtown traffic in a stretched limousine. Mary and I said goodbye to Chastity, who was going out with her friends. Then we caught a taxi and went out to a nice steak dinner at Smith and Walensky. Cher and I had exchanged no teary parting words after the show, nothing that indicated she'd been touched. It was a simple thanks and so long. Still, Mary was anxious to relive every moment. How do you think Cher felt? Honestly, Ma, I don't think she cares about those memories. I think if she could blow them all up, she would. And that was not the truth. That was not the truth. If you want to know more of Sonny's version, you got to get the book. And Cher's other book, the memoirs, and the first time. That was fun. That was fun. Did you like that? Did you like this? I'm waiting to hear Cher's side of the story. We've got to see part 2 to find out what happens. To find out what she thinks, because that's where the book ends. We need to find out. A good one. Oh, and where is it? Don't forget Flashback Monday. Thank you.